as well as Max Pridmore. We are a role called the club developers. Okay, so we focus very much around club aspects and supporting clubs in their needs. You've also got Struan on tonight, and he is a coach developer. So his focus is obviously in the name. He focuses very much on the coaching element of rugby. So you've got 4 members of RFU staff here this evening to kind of talk you through. You will start to notice that we want quite a relaxed approach. This is not a formal environment. It's just kind of something that we put on to kind of support you as a club with your inner warrior. There is going to be a lot of information tonight. Some of it you will know or you'll have seen before. If you've run inner warriors before, then it might be something that's quite familiar to you. If you're completely new, it might be all new. Don't worry too much about necessarily taking notes if you don't want to. I'm going to be sending an email out that's got a lot of attachments and a lot of links in. We've kind of gone with the approach on this one that we'd rather give you a huge amount of information and probably almost too much information, and then you can kind of cherry pick out of it what you want, instead of you walking away and going, oh, I haven't necessarily got anything from that call there. Okay, so you've got the chat function down the bottom. We really want you to, as I said, we're not going to use breakout rooms this evening because we've only got an hour. We really want you to use that chat function. So what we're going to ask is if you've got any kind of ideas, if anything's run well for you previously, it doesn't have to be about Inner Warrior. The main theme of tonight is about recruitment, because basically your Inner Warrior is just a recruitment event. So if something's gone well for you before, or you've seen something work well for any section in the club, please put it in the chat. So the whole point of tonight is, yes, there'll be some stuff that we'll be talking you through, but there's also a wealth of other experience in this room from other clubs that are just around the corner from you. So please put it in the chat. We'll come, one of my colleagues, so Liam or Max, is going to interrupt me as I'm talking, and we might even get you off mute to kind of give a little bit more information if that's all right. Right, we're going to get started. I do have a PowerPoint just to keep us on track, as I said, but it's not necessarily essentially the be all and end all. Oh, I'm going to have issues with this. Hold on, give me 2 seconds, sorry. There we go. Sorry, it's just easier because the bar gets in the way. So the 3 kind of aims from this evening are, we're going to talk about the pre-event, we're going to talk about the actual event day, and we're going to talk post-event. Okay, so that's the kind of 3 main areas that we're going to look at. Before we get started on this, we wanted to share this information with you. So this is from Women's in Sport institution. They're not an NGB, they're not like the RFU or English Cricket or anything like that. They are a separate organisation. In 2013, they did a survey on women, and they came up with this result. And it's the 6 key motivators for women as to basically what we do and why we do it. Now, this isn't just a sport, this is everything in your life, basically. There's not anything that's really too surprising in there. So feeling good, looking good, developing your skills, having fun, achieving my goals, and nurturing my friends and family. So that's basically social element. That's a fancy way of saying social element. So there's nothing there that's too surprising, but it's nice to see that there's actually a survey here that backs up a lot of what we kind of already know. The main aspect for this is, if we're then trying to deliver something, if we're trying to engage with a group, we want to know what motivates them. So straight away here, you've got 6 things that we now know motivates women. So when you're trying to promote and run your recruitment event, which is your Inner Warrior, it's really important that we have these 6 key motivators in our mind. If we promote one or all of these 6 things, we're likely to engage with a group of females. Now, the key thing around this is these 6 motivators don't necessarily stay the same for the individual for the whole of their life. So you kind of, things can change. So somebody might start off, they might come to a rugby club on the first instant because they want a social aspect, they want that social element. And as they get more and more into the sport, that then might shift to then developing my skills. So that's seeing that player transition from being a social player into a competitive player because their motivations changed. So this is a really, really useful kind of image and document. As you can see on the left, I've said to promote these 6 key factors. And if we do that, as I said, we will attract some females. Now, another thing that this survey says, and I'm going to share, as I said in the email, I'm going to share the survey post tonight, is it talks about influencers. So Max, can you just pop up poll number 1, please? I know I said we weren't going to have breakout rooms, but we are going to kind of ask you to do something. So there should be a poll popping up in front of you. Yep.
Yeah, it's up now.
Okay, cool. I can't see it. Can everybody else see the poll?
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. So if you can just answer that poll as to who was it that brought you down to the rugby club? Who was it that got you to give rugby a try? Who was it that influenced you?
If it's not coming up on yours for whatever reason, if you're on a tablet and it's not quite working, just pop it in the chat for us. Who kind of influenced you, so whether it was parents, friends, teachers, social media, TV, or something totally different.
How are we doing with that, Max?
Yeah, we're nearly there. We're about 4 off, so we'll give 3 seconds. Lovely. And you should all be seeing the results now.
I can't see the results, so you'll have to tell me. Talk me through it, Max. What does it say?
So we've got the biggest one is friends, up 40%.
Wow.
We've then got what we've got incoming next, TV at 27%. We've then got teachers at 20% and then parents at 13%.
Right. Can somebody who watched, basically was influenced by TV, do you mind coming off mute and telling us what you saw on the TV?
Yeah, that'd be me.
Right.
I think the ones who answered TV will be all the old farts who grew up in the 70s watching the Five Nations,
Right.
and listening to Bill McLaren and Nigel Starmer-Smith and watching rugby special on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday, being glued to the rugby results on Grandstand. They used to have rugby results on Grandstand during final score and used to know how Ebervale had got on against Maesteg, how Gala had got on against Melrose. And it was just this sort of mythical world, really, that I wanted to belong to. Mainly through watching the likes of, Gareth Edwards, Phil Bennett, David Duckham, people like that. These sort of magicians with a rugby ball, and being inspired by what I saw on telly.
I think
that was probably the thing that made me want to play the game more than anything else.
Yeah, I really like that sentence, mythical world, that I wanted to be part of. I think that's a big thing when we're, because I'll talk about it later, when we're trying to promote something, which is essentially what we're trying to do with these Inner Warriors, we're trying to promote them. They're a recruitment event. We are wanting to sell a place where people want to be. And so the TV has shown you a mythical world that you want to be in, which is a really nice sentence. One of the kind of women in sport data really shows that one of the big influences is real life people around you. So it's your family and it's your social network. Okay, so that's your friends, basically. And unfortunately, yes, it's important to see female role models on the TV, but watching that is not likely to get a young female to turn up to a rugby club and give rugby a try, or the percentage on that is quite low. So going back to our preparation around our Inner Warriors, one of the biggest areas that we can focus on as a club and as volunteers as we prep is your current network. So your current network is your club membership. And a lot of us, when we think about promoting these Inner Warriors, and we're going to talk about it a lot, we're going to talk about social media, we're going to talk about websites, but the biggest thing that you've got at your disposal is a huge network of people that are already invested in rugby. Now, at the moment, the majority of them are male, because there'll be your male section as adult section, and then there'll be your mini and junior sections. But every one of those members will have a female that they are connected to, whether that's a mum, nana, friend, auntie, or girlfriend, or wife, or the list is endless. So the kind of, there's been some real good successes with clubs where they've really focused on their current network and maximizing on that. So a couple of really good examples. So I'm based up in County Durham, so I'm quite familiar with those clubs. So Winlayton was a 2-team male section club with no minis and juniors, and went from no female section to a female section in the space, playing full contact rugby in the space of a month, because they started off just talking to the females that were stood on the sideline on a Saturday afternoon and just talking to them about, well, if your other half can play, why don't you? Have you thought about giving it a go? You can come along and try some fitness stuff to start off with. You know that your husband is not a superstar, so what's the difference between him and you? Another really good example is Horden and Peterlee. They've got a lot of mums playing in that team because they've been fed up of sat watching their kids play on a Sunday. And it's that whole thing when those initial conversations happen, they don't think that they can or that they want to play full contact rugby union. They think, no, I can't, I don't want to. But the big thing is they already have a link with the game. They already know what rugby is. They already know the advantages of why it's important to be down a rugby club. They already know about the social elements and about the development elements of a rugby club. So it's a much easier sell, basically, talking to them than it is to talking to a female that's never heard of rugby, never knows what it is, might be a footballer, somebody that's really sporty and is looking for a new challenge. It can be quite challenging to convert them because they don't have an idea, they don't have a picture in their mind of what rugby actually is and why it's a good place to be. So a couple of things that we've put down there is making sure that your current players know what it is that you're trying to achieve out of your Inner Warrior event. There's nothing worse than having your first team captain turning up and then trying to run tactical drills and not understanding the fact that we're here to kind of potentially recruit some new members. So it's making sure that everybody's on board with what you're trying to do, and that you promote it back to your membership group, and get your committee involved in that. Don't feel like that's something that you as an individual have to do. All the kind of minis and junior coaches, they've all got WhatsApp chats for their teams like you do for your teams. So asking them to share that in their groups that they've already got, you can potentially hit, say, 500 mums just with them putting it in those group chats, and all they've got to do is copy and paste a message. And also think about your local links that the club has. So go back to your committee, your treasurer, those type of things with your local charities and your sponsors, Girl Guide groups, those kind of groups which are already doing an activity, but won't necessarily conflict with another sport. So particularly somebody like Girl Guides, it's not like you're going to a football club and saying, right, let's double up on your activity there. So some really kind of useful tips there around your current membership. Have we got any questions or has anybody had any good successes with this? Anything in the chat, lads?
Just some interesting points, Laura. I know you couldn't see the poll, but there was actually 0% for social media. So it was just quite, I know if we ran the poll wider, that may change, but just interesting. And as Rachel from Silhillian says, it could be an age thing with the sort of age profile that we have on. But given that we do push quite a lot for social media, it was interesting that no one on this meeting had kind of come in through that route. And Jess from Huddersfield sort of backed that up as well. And they, she sort of said that they've used social media as the kind of trigger to get things moving. But then it's been friends that have recruited people in. So quite often it's a combination of those aspects that's drawing people into clubs.
Yeah, I think it's that word of mouth element, isn't it? They want to see something on social media and then they'll follow it up by asking a friend or asking somebody that's linked to that kind of area that they're looking at. So a really, really good point there. Thanks, Liam. So really that whole subject matter there is, as I said, it's talking about word of mouth, connecting with your current membership, your current group of people that are available to you. So the next big one is your website. I know a lot of us might not have control of this because it might be run by the main club. But if you can send through just an email with all your details through to whoever your comms lead is the club, send it to your club secretary if you don't know who it is, send it to your club secretary and your club chair, and just ask them to put it up as a news article. The main one is you're looking to do 2 news articles. You'll do one pre-event and you'll do one post-event. Make sure you put in all your key details. So where you've got to be, what time, what they need to wear, the fact that they can just rock up, they don't have to book in advance, all that kind of stuff. Basically, your website is reconfirming the fact that it's a real event. We talk about it as in Word of mouth will get people connected. Social media will help you reach potentially a wider market, and your website is essentially, it's proving that it's a real thing, and that it's not just kind of, we live in a world of fake scamming and everything like that now. So that's your website kind of thing. Social media, this is a huge area, and we could literally do 20 slides just on social media if we wanted to. The main one is going back those 2 slides to your network. Your network on social media is your current team members, friends, and family members. So a key thing is making sure that, again, all of your current members share your event, talk about the event on their social media, and just promote it as widely as they can, and try and use some tagging and that kind of stuff if they can. The big one is obviously Facebook will allow you to add it as an event. I know in your emails that you'll have had, it will ask you to do that anyway. One thing that we've put down there is, through all of this, it's selling, as we went back to that sentence where Dave said, making it a magical place for people to be. Your club is your magical place. So for all of this, you need to sell what makes your rugby club unique. And that won't be the same as the club that's 2 doors down from you. So it's trying to have a little think. And if you don't feel like you know the answer to that, don't worry. Go back to your current players, look at your other sections and go, what is it that this rugby club is about? Are we a social rugby club where we just want to have a load of fun? Are we a load of people that just like to get drunk on a Sunday night and use rugby as an excuse to be able to do that? Or are we really competitive? Just trying to think about what your unique selling point is. A good example that I'm going to do, I'm just going to share, hold on if you bear with me, it is this image, which is from, again, another club in Durham, shock with me working up here for so long. If you just give that a little read, hopefully it is a long read, but it might give you a little giggle. And we definitely don't necessarily condone the poor element in that image. I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to read that. Hopefully we've all had a chance to read that. I'm going to bring us back to, I can see a couple of smiling faces, so that's good. What do we think of that image? Come on, somebody come off mute. I'm fed up with my own voice.
I liked it. I thought it took away all the sort of fears that people might have. Because when you start on your event, you're like, oh, am I going to be wearing the wrong thing? Am I not going to like it? What if I'm not as good? But that makes it sound like everybody's happily rubbish together, which is, people will get on with that.
Yeah, do you feel like you know what that club is about? Do you feel like you've got a good picture of what that rugby club is?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So for me, that's why that image really works. They've managed to, in one small image, they've managed to convey to you what they're about. Now, if you're a competitive rugby player and you want to be training twice a week and actually running around and passing the ball and making some tackles, that's not going to interest you. But that's fine, because that, you know, you're going to the right place. So a great example there. The tool that they're using there, I don't know how familiar people are with it. So if you're not into graphic design, you don't have to be. There's a brilliant app called Canva. So if you just type in Canva online, it'll come up. It's free to use. It's really easy to use, and you can start creating your own artwork. You can put the club logo in there. You can add as much text as you want, and basically it's adding that. So the Inner Warrior stuff is great, and you'll have that, all the imagery will be sent out in the email that I'll send out afterwards if you haven't already had it. And by all means, use that if you want to use that. But if you really want to kind of sell what you're about, then create your own artwork. Just add a bit of humor in if you want, make it what you are as a club, basically. And remembering, going back to that slide where we had the wheel with the 6 motivators. So trying to make sure that you convey, so if we looked at that wheel now against that image of the guy with his ice cream, we would probably say that they were selling the having fun and socializing with friends. Those two motivators were the ones they were trying to hit with that image. So it's going back to those 6 motivators and kind of trying to make sure that we've covered them. The other one is the paid Facebook campaigns. Has anybody tried running one of these? Anybody mind coming off Zoom? Anyone ran one?
Yeah, we ran one. I was going to say last year, but the year before for the Warriors. And we were able to click on demographics and areas you want to target. And of course, as you do that, it adds the price up, or it adds to the price, should I say. And I can't say we had a massive response to it. We did get a lot of interest as it feeds it back to you. And then another thing to back it up, we did, what did we call it? Training on tour. And the villages around the South Lakes, we targeted them and did a training in the one evening a week. Well, we train on a Thursday normally. At the moment, it's Thursdays we're training, but when we separate out, the ladies train on a Wednesday. So we made it a Wednesday evening, and we went round. We did eventually recruit 2 players from it, but we went all around the area, backing it up with this Facebook page. But overall, for the effort that we put in, we did feel it was a little disappointing. Or should we say, we thought we deserved a better result, should I say that?
Fair enough, really good feedback. Good to hear, thanks Tim. We've had that making yourself more visible is definitely worked for other clubs as well. So I know the Newcastle area, have we got anyone? Well, we've got Bladen, but they've done Touch in the Park for quite a while, and they've gone on to the centre Common Exhibition Park, which is like right in the centre of town, and that's just made the sport much more visible and has enabled them to kind of be seen. So then people, you might not get that instant interaction. You might not have somebody walk over to you and say, excuse me, what are you doing? Can I join? But what you will do is get people walk away, and then they'll Google rugby in Newcastle or rugby in Hartlepool or wherever it is they are, and it'll come up with your details there. So it's just trying to make yourself as visible as you can be. So really good idea. Thank you, Tim.
Laura,
yeah.
Can I just step in? Just a couple of questions around not booking in advance and track and trace, things along those lines. So just in the chat room, just said that if people do want to turn up, then obviously it's good practice to have a register, contact details. You know, should anything go wrong. And Jess from Huddersfield also said about the club's QR codes around the pitch, so people can check in on the day and having that available. And then just on a similar theme, just if people have COVID symptoms in advance, so is it worth putting that on the sort of pre-advertisements that if people do have COVID symptoms, to kind of get in touch, and then there's some form of data capture, because we don't want to lose these people from the game afterwards without attending the event.
Brilliant, thanks Liam. Right, so back to the PowerPoint. So I think we've covered that. We've put in there about the hashtag as well, just to help you engage with that. Like we talked about local charities and local groups. You can use hashtags to help you engage with different people in that way as well. So now we're moving on to the actual event itself, and we've called it Event Day. And you've got your 3 elements there. You've got, oh, hold on, sorry, I've just gone too far ahead. So you've got your 3 elements there, which is car park, pitch and club. And obviously with COVID, by club, we mean your kind of outdoor bar facilities / your kind of like after activity. And the key thing with this is putting people in these areas that have got a skill set that suits. So if you've got somebody that you know is super bubbly, super outgoing, will talk to anyone, and is usually the person that's difficult to get them to be quiet, they are the person to put in your car park. not necessarily any pitch, because you might not get much activity done. So if you can, try and get them to be your meet and greet. So they're immediately, anybody that's new turning up to the club is got a friendly face and somebody that's being really outgoing and making it, again, that place that they want to be. Again, we've put in there about briefing volunteers, making sure that they know what it is you're trying to achieve and what it is the aim of the event, basically. On the pitch, we're going to cover that a little bit more. Well, Stuart's going to cover that with possible content and that kind of stuff. Again, it's making sure that all your players know what it is you're trying to achieve. And again, you don't have your first team flanker coming out of nowhere and wiping out a poor newbie if you are doing some contact elements or anything along those lines. And then the club element afterwards. So that's your post-session activity. Really what you're aiming for is you don't want people to have to hop in their cars and immediately disperse. Obviously, COVID has made this a lot harder, but we can still do some bits and pieces if your clubhouse has got that outdoor kind of hosting facility, which hopefully it has. There is lots of success with clubs putting on food and drinks afterwards. So again, it's splitting people up into their groups of 6 and just saying that they have to stay in those groups of 6. They can't kind of do musical chairs and move around, unfortunately. So again, what we've talked about coming up is a buddy system. I know a lot of us are familiar with buddy systems, but it's putting somebody with a newbie so that they've instantly got a name and a face and somebody that when they come back next week, they know. And it's creating that sense of belonging as quickly as you can. You want them to feel like they're part of the club and part of the team, which is why if you've got somebody that's already a mum or kind of that kind of link to the rugby club, that's a lot easier. And now it's shifting that sense of belonging to, now you're not just a spectator, you're a player. So that can be an easier transition with them. But if they're really new and they don't have a link to the club, then it's definitely, we want them to get a sense of belonging as quickly as possible. Now, what's worked well with that previously has been kit, stash, freebies, t-shirts, that kind of stuff, which if you do have available to you, brilliant. It does create an immediate sense of belonging because then they walk away with a piece of kit with the club name on. A big thing that we've put on here, we do see higher retention rates, which is going to sound really odd, in clubs that have quite a proactive club photographer. So if you've got somebody that is very good at taking photos or very happy to take photos, I would strongly advise asking them to come down to that training event when you've got Inner Warrior on. So what you want is you want a load of material that you're able to promote about how the event went, but it's also then enabling to tag people in that, to show in this world of social media, it might not necessarily help us recruit, but it definitely helps us retain. In the world of social media where people go, it didn't happen unless it happened on social media. This is giving them an opportunity to check into the rugby club, to show that they were there, to have photos, to show what they were doing, to show how strong they are and the type of activity that they're kind of now kind of doing. If you think about it, everybody puts photos up when they walk up a mountain or when they're trying a new activity or that kind of stuff. So if you've got that resource, definitely make use of it. So take a look at, even if you don't have it in your section, go back to your club secretary, look at, have they been putting up first team photos from a Saturday afternoon, and go, look, could you reach out to this guy? Just do us a favor, can they turn up for this Friday night or this Sunday afternoon, just as a one-off, and take some photos of our Inner Warrior. We've also put, well, in a to-do list that we'll send out as a chat room, you can do that pre-event as well. If you've got any photos from previous Inner Warriors or videos from previous Inner Warriors, really use them in your promotional material, because it's showing, it's visualizing to people what the session would look like. Because otherwise, as I said, like if you speak to somebody that's watched rugby, they'll go, no, I couldn't do that. I can't do full contact. I can't do that. Go out there and smash somebody. The image, the visualization of it in your mind is worse than the actual doing. So if you can show them a video of what your club sessions look like, then you're more likely to be able to tempt them to give it a go. Okay. And also try and review the event afterwards. Ask your current members how they thought it went. And if you can, ask some of the newbies how they thought it went. Did they enjoy it? What did they like the most? What elements did they think were the most enjoyable? And what is it that kind of might bring them back to the club? So don't be afraid to do that review. I know a lot of us will do it in work, but we don't necessarily do it down the rugby club. And actually, if you don't know how to get better, or you don't know how good you've been, a lot of the time you might walk away from it and go, oh, that wasn't a success. Whereas actually, when asked the players, they've had a great time, and you have had a success. So it's really important, if you can do that review, please do. And a big one on there as well is tagging people once the activities happened. Tag them in the fact that they kind of turned up, reach out to them, send them a text message, or a message on social media saying thank you for turning up, and add them quite quickly into your group chats, because it goes back about that sense of belonging. Don't wait for them to turn up to the second training session to add them into group chats. Get that sense of belonging straight away. Let them see the banter, which you might be worried might put some people off, but actually it's probably what a lot of people want. So let them see the banter, and let them see what the club is about, essentially. Have we got any questions or any points on that, Liam, from the chat, or does anybody want to come off mute?
Nothing at the moment in the chat, Laura.
Brilliant. Right, I'm just gonna, before we go to Stuart, before we then, so that's kind of like your campaign element, that's your build up, that's your running the event, apart from the session plan, and it's your post event. Has anyone got any questions? Has anyone got anything that they'd add that worked well for them previously? Is there anything that you think we're missing? Has anyone got any questions about anything that we think we've missed? No? Oh, okay. Right. Okay. Well, I'm gonna hand over to Stuart now, who, as I said, is our coach developer. So he's going to focus more on the kind of what you can do in that session. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, please, Stuart.
Thanks, Laura, and evening everyone. Hope you're doing well. As Laura said, my name's Stuart Hutchison, and I'm a coach developer who is asked to come and present around what to deliver in the session and how we can deliver it. So thinking about our session design and our session planning. So just looking at this slide here, as you can see at the top there's going to be some send outs and some useful resources that you guys can pick up. That's going to cover off some of the things that I'm just going to discuss in the next 10 minutes or so. So there'll be quite a lot of information that comes at you, like what's happened previously this evening, but don't worry, there will be some resources and guidance getting sent out following the call. So the kind of key principles there, if I just run through those. So an introduction to rugby, what we mean by that is basic rugby skills. So things like our catch, pass, some general movement skills, being able to evade, and also holding and running the ball, kind of sort of key skills that we maybe take for granted that some of these new players have maybe never done before, held a rugby ball before, for example. So they're the sorts of things we mean around there. Small-sided games we'll actually cover on the next slide, but it's just keeping the games small, keeping the teams small-sided so that there's plenty touches and plenty opportunity for people to be involved. Learning new skills, again, that kind of ties into our rugby skills that I mentioned earlier, but also around things like teamwork, organisation, communication, respect, all these sorts of skills that come with the game. We should be looking to try and incorporate those into our sessions. Active and challenging, so when we do produce games, can we get progressions into those games? So if for example, the session's going really well, how can we try and positively challenge the group? So how can we make it, that little bit more challenging or that little bit harder for them if they're getting to grips with it really easily, but then also being able to regress the exercise as well. So if the group's struggling with some of the session or some of the activity, how can we potentially just make that slightly easier? Because we all want them to experience success. So I think that's a really important part there. And then finally, just around the social interaction. So like what Laura has sort of already discussed this evening, but within our session, we should be trying to plan opportunities for social interaction to take place. So that can be before the session, kind of a meet and greet, and that could also be done in the warm up and also at the end of the session as well. We should really allow for everyone just to get to know each other. So if you head on to the next slide, please, Laura, we'll look at how to deliver the session. So again, just in bold there at the top of the slide, it says that we're currently on stage D2 on the Return to Rugby roadmap. So as of Monday, the 26th of April, we moved to stage D2. and we won't be moving to stage E before Monday, the 17th of May, which is in line with government guidelines on their return their roadmap as well. So it's just important to bear this in mind, that when we are planning our sessions, to consider whether we're at stage D2 or stage E. So there's some sort of key dates around that. If we then look to the bullet points, so first point when we're delivering the session is around creating a welcoming environment. So again, like we've mentioned there, just having an opportunity for social interaction and having a meet and greet of the players on arrival. We would then recommend a warm-up, which is fun and active and movement-based, so straight away the participants are getting involved in the session. And I've put in brackets their names, so you know, can we come up with games and can we have opportunities where the participants are getting to learn each other's names? So again, if we've got new people coming along to our session, can we try and pick up their name really quickly? And I think a warm-up is quite a good way that we can bring that social interaction into it. So, and then on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see that there's a Warrior Camp session format. So again, that's one of the resources that Laura's going to share with you after the call. And that follows a game zone, skill zone approach, which you might be able to see. So again, we'd really encourage you to use a game zone, skill zone approach. So that's whereby we have a game and when we set participants off to go and play that game, and then we head to a skill zone where we pick out kind of the key parts of that game and we try and break it down into little skills where we focus on that. And then you'll see at the bottom, it then goes back into a game zone. So the participants have a chance to have a kind of a team game where there's lots going on, and then maybe break it down into a skill zone where they can focus on key parts of that game and then put it back into a game zone where they're getting more opportunities to practice that skill. As mentioned earlier, small-sided games creates more involvement. So again, for these sessions, we'd really recommend that you're, depending on the numbers, you're using small-sided games, and that's really just to allow for more people to get touches on the ball and obviously more involvement. And again, that links with the session being more active for all. The next point is around the summer activity guidance on session time. So when we're doing these sessions, I'd recommend probably roughly an hour to an hour and 10, and I think that would be enough time. So we don't want to make the session go on for too long, especially if we've potentially got some new players there. There may be a real range of fitness abilities and fitness levels. So again, it's just allowing drinks breaks within the session, but not having too long stoppages and not stopping the session all the time. So obviously, yes, we want to factor in some social interaction opportunities, and we want some rest, and we also want some hydration, but we don't want to be stopping the session every 5 minutes, for example, and kind of having a catch up and a long chat. Going back to the earlier point, we want the sessions to be active as well. The next one is just around creative challenges. So for example, this kind of goes back to the point around progressing and regressing the game. So for example, can we bring in little rules such as you need to make 5 passes or 10 passes before you can score a try, or once one player scored a try and the rest of the team have to score before that person can score again. And also for a contest possession, instead of just giving one team the ball, you could maybe get 2 players, one from each team, and just say you're going to do 10 star jumps. Whoever does that fastest gets possession of the ball. So these are just fun, creative ways that we can try and bring that element of fun really into the sessions without just giving one team the ball or without one player kind of dominating the session. So yeah, you can challenge players individually or as part of a team using examples like I've just given there. And then the last point for me really is just lots of engagement and lots of encouragement. You know, like I said earlier, there might be a real mix of players, and there might be a range of abilities. So if we have a drop ball or we have a not so good a pass or whatever, then I mean that's not the point of the session. It's about encouraging new players to come along and really trying to build that team environment. So yeah, last point's really important there, just around lots of positive reinforcement and encouragement. And then finally, some further resources. So the session format, Laura's going to send that out post-call. So that's what's attached to the slide there. There's lots of links on that are embedded into the session plan. So when you click on that, it'll actually take you to a video, and it'll give you an example of how that activity runs. There's also some game cards. So God, I think there's about 20 different games and formats of different games. That's another resource that's going to be sent to you. And that tells you how to set up the pitch, what numbers you can play with, what the activity is, and all those kind of things. So a really useful resource there that I'd recommend looking at. Social media. So we've got a Facebook page and a Twitter page, which is RFU North Game Dev. And so that's where we put any kind of coaching practice and information on there. So if you're interested, feel free to have a look. And there's also the England Rugby Keep Your Boots On YouTube channel, which again has loads of video resources, which also has videos on skill zones and game zones. So feel free again just to have a look on these resources if you're stuck for ideas. And the final thing is there's going to be some up-to-date information on the return to rugby stage D1 and D2 guidance, which will be sent, and that'll help you with your planning of the activity. So like I said, that was obviously quite a lot of information. I think covered everything off there. If anyone's got any questions, I've seen the chat, but there's a few things gone in the chat box, which I'll try and answer now just by typing in, unless anyone already has. But apart from that, that's everything from me, Laura. I hope that all makes sense.
Thanks, Stuart. Well, it's quite a simple one, obviously, to start with rugby netball. And I know those of us that have been playing a while, we might played it a lot, but the likelihood is pretty much every female will have played netball at school. It's very rare for a female to have gone to a school where netball's not on offer. So to start with something that's familiar to them, that they'll go, oh yeah, I remember this from way back when. It's quite a good place to start, I suppose. Is there anybody want to come off mute? Any questions around the content side of the session from Stuart? No. Oh,
just while people are having a think, Laura, there was just an interesting thing from Dave from Huddersfield. One of their girls is currently not attending as it's Ramadan, and he was just talking about the sort of lack of players from various communities being involved in the game. And he was wondering if anybody on the sort of session this evening had experience of engaging different communities and different players, because there is a huge market there. I know that if we go slightly wider across some of our other club developer network, there are some examples, but just interesting if anybody in the room had sort of experienced any engagement with community leaders around that at all.
Anyone? Doesn't necessarily have to be around the female side of game. It could be any kind of area of the club.
I was going to say it's good to have links with the community organisations themselves in those areas, because when you build up those relationships and then you then have that access to those individuals, if that makes sense. So it's really important to think outside the club and actually go to those community groups.
I think that's a really good point, because if somebody doesn't necessarily have a family member involved in the game, as we saw from that kind of, unless they're playing it at school, it's very difficult for them to then get down the club. So I think that's where we're gonna have to be proactive, and reaching out to a community organisation and a community leader is a great way to do that. And that it can start off with not being a rugby focus. So it can be just working with a local organisation, giving them a space for them to use as hospitality, giving them a meeting room space. If you're open on a Thursday night and they're always meeting on a Thursday night, let them come in, use a corner of the clubhouse. It's free for them. It means that they're not necessarily have to hire somewhere that's going to charge them. So it's just bringing them in through the door and making them realise that you're a good kind of community asset. And then it's then building the links around the rugby playing aspect. So it's kind of, yeah, as everyone said, thinking outside the box.
Could I raise a point there as well?
Yep, of course, yeah, go for it.
So I think that's a great idea, bringing people into clubs, but particularly with women's rugby. You don't, if I walked into a club, you see a lot of plaques that will list all the presidents of the clubs and all the players and with the shirts, and they'll all be men. So for a lot of people, it would be hard to tell that you had a women's team just by walking into a clubhouse. If you've got a big picture of your women's team, or something like that, that would just really help, because I'd walk in and go, oh, there's a women's team here. When do they meet? And that would be really good for me.
Yeah, and it's also potentially removing the rugby element. So it goes back to those 6 key motivators at the start, and just having photos of people having fun in your rugby club environment, and that's all people that use that kind of facility. So yeah, you bang on there about, and again, you see it's those clubs that make their space welcoming to all. Those are the ones that are going to be able to welcome all, and will have a diverse kind of community engaging with them. So yeah, little things like that can make a big difference. It's very difficult to change as well. Changing rooms is a big thing. You don't want a cold, dark changing room. A lot of clubs think that they need mirrors and separate showers for the females. In my opinion, usually it's the men's first team that want the mirrors and the hair dryers more than it is the female section. But what you do want is somewhere that's dry and warm once you've been playing a game of rugby. So that can be hard to change and take time to change, but it's just being aware of those factors and going back to what are the controllables. What can you do, particularly for this Inner Warrior event that's coming up? What is within your control that you can do that makes your club a place that people want to be? And then it's a case of how do you promote that, and what kind of platforms, what opportunities have you got to be able to promote that out to your community? We've obviously talked about website, social media, and word of mouth are your 3 kind of main elements of that, with your different strands going through that. Has anyone else got that's kind of it on the PowerPoint side of things? We've covered all the kind of topics that we had kind of ticked off. Has anybody got anything else to kind of add?
I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
What other groups have people approached? So we're in Windermere, so we've talked, like the young farmers sometimes use the clubhouse. We've talked to them. I know you mentioned Girl Guides, but what other groups have people approached, or have you got any ideas of other groups or other communities or other clubs that we can approach?
Has anybody else, before I hop in with some, has anybody else?
We've got a local American football team, so we've approached them, hopefully get a combined training session up soon, but we've got quite a few of the players that are transferring across both. And then you've also got like cadets is quite a good one because they're quite active. I know sometimes their camps interfere, but we have the big junior section as well, and we're getting the influx there, so it's almost setting up your junior section to keep your women feeding. And we have we have quite a lot of cadet centres around here, so that's another place to look at.
Yeah, and some.
Was that somebody else going to hop in?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, just you're quite quiet, but yes, I can hear you.
Say again, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. You're just quiet.
Cool.
Sorry, Joe.
Sorry, it's just I couldn't see the box around my name. So yeah, I was part of that Win Leighton team that you mentioned earlier on in the call, and something that we did when we were like when we were there, we got in touch with local schools to try and kind of build up a girls section, kind of going back into what Danielle was saying there about building up a girls section to then feed into your ladies teams. That kind of promotes, I suppose, the longer term goals of the club and the team. So yeah, that was something that we went to, was kind of local schools and colleges and things, just to try and kind of have that relationship there for people that wouldn't necessarily otherwise have been exposed. Because I know when I was at school, rugby was never on the curriculum for girls, and I know it's the same thing for a lot of the players on the team I'm with now. Rugby was never something in school, it was always something outside of school because of their brothers or their dads playing or something like that, you know.
Yeah, there's a couple of kind of like sporting organisations that you can go to, and each local area is different. So we've got things called active partnerships, which are basically, some of them are council run, some of them aren't. They're tasked with trying to get the local community more active. So you can reach out to them, and they have connections with lots of other sports clubs, lots of other like entities in the local area, and they can potentially, if they've got like a news or an event section on their website, they can add it into that. But that is, again, that's just targeting the kind of like sporting world. You then also got your council elements of that. So most like county councils have got a sport department, which again, you can reach out to them and get them to add your event onto their websites, which is definitely worthwhile doing. But again, it's just focusing on those people that are already looking to get active. Whereas I think, Holly, you're potentially talking there about potentially not sporting groups, and then trying to kind of get them engaged first and then get them on that sporting element. So a couple of really good pieces of kind of success stories there that have worked with other clubs. The main one is having a look around. Yeah, so Liam's just put up about local gyms and sports centres, and it's having a look at a local charity to you and creating somebody that's already linked to your kind of your town, your village or your city. Some of the bigger charities like Mind are quite proactive, but they're just so national it can be quite hard to work with. Another one is potentially your local doctors, your local health centres. So exercise on referral is a big thing right now. So if you've got people that work in your local GP practice, they can be very useful, because you can just hand over your leaflets and your session information and go, look, if you've got somebody that you think would benefit from being in a rugby club environment, please give them our information. And if you've got a telephone number of somebody that you can use on that again is really useful. That's kind of small numbers, but it's a really kind of, it doesn't take much if you've already got that connection with them. Any other kind of anything else going on in the chat, Liam, or any other questions or points that somebody wants to come out and
could I just ask a quick question? We're running an event on the 15th of May and we've opened it up for girls and women's rugby. So the drills and things that Stuart was talking about, is it similar sort of drills that you can do with girls section as well as women's section, but obviously separately, you know, not together?
Yeah, no, that'll be fine.
Okay.
The things that are mentioned on that are okay.
Brilliant, thank you.
Can I ask Joe a question, please? You say you went to your local schools. Mm-hmm. We don't, where we are, we don't have, well, we have one that's close to us. Did you approach the head teacher, the games teacher, or how did you get on with that?
I think it wasn't me personally that did it, but I think what they did was they just got in touch with like the head teachers or like the head of PE if they knew sort of someone that went to that school. They found out kind of the head of PE, something like that, and just kind of offered to do a session at the school, like a similar to an inner warrior type of session, like an introduction to rugby, basic skills and things, just to try and kind of gauge if there was any interest, and then say, look, if you want to do more of this, you can come along to the club and kind of take it from there. Ah,
right. So just outside the school day, you ran a session, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like a little introduction to rugby sort of thing, just a little taster session.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've done a similar thing as well, but I know some of our coaches have actually gone into PE lessons. They've been allowed to go into PE lessons. Obviously, they're all DBS qualified, but with teachers there, they've been able to go in and target like year 7 and year 8 girls, specific PE lessons to give them a bit of a taster.
Hartlepool Rovers, you've done a really good kind of campaign as well recently with putting up player profiles of the girls and linking it to the school that they came from, and then being able. Yeah, are you all right to talk? Well, is there anything much else to add to that, Danielle? How's it worked? How hard was it to do that?
It wasn't that difficult. I mean, one of the first ones that was used was my stepdaughter, so that was quite easy. But they put in the primary school that they came from and the secondary school that they go to, and then linked up with both schools with the hashtag that you said, and it's actually been retweeted by like head teachers and stuff as well, and shared on. So it's gone through the school sites as well quite easily, just using the hashtag. So it didn't actually take that much time. And we've had some good results. We've had quite a few new juniors coming down. And we've also got our year 6s starting to train for the under 13s as well, as like an introduction through the summer while it's not much contact, just to keep the feed going through.
Yeah, it's very, I think, Tim, what you're hinting at is sometimes it's quite difficult to know what you do. Do you go to head teachers or do you go to kind of to PE teachers? And different clubs have had different results and different ways that they've approached it. I think the Hartlepool Rovers example there is a great way of kind of engaging with the schools, because they like to boast about what their pupils are doing extracurricular wise. So that was a really good example of getting them to engage that way. Some clubs, it's going into the head teacher and making a formal relationship and going, this is a serious partnership that we want to work with you going forward, and that kind of stuff. But that can require quite a lot of commitment from the club and time from a chairman or somebody who's going to lead on that. And again, there's been great successes where a club coach has just approached a PE teacher and said, look, I've got my DBS qualification, I've got my coaching badges, I'm free on Thursday, do you want me to come in and help you deliver rugby? And that's given them players within a couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
It's really, it depends on the resources I think you have available to you as a club, but then also what the school are willing to let you do.
Well, overall, we have a great relationship with the head teacher and the games mistress. We seem to be right. Hockey seems to be our biggest rival with the school, but it's just trying to break through. You get the odd trickle, and that's that. And I'm just wondering if I'm missing something, basically.
So the biggest thing that it's on the thank you slide, which I haven't bothered to put up, is staying positive. Really got to stay positive with this. You might only end up with, so I asked in the email this morning to kind of set yourselves a target, set yourselves a kind of ambition that you want to achieve with your inner warrior. If you get one new player, some people approach that and go quite sad about that. They go, oh, we only got one player. But that's one new player. So, and you've got to think about, and they've got a whole load of new friends that you can now try and reach out to as well through them. So the big thing is it can be quite difficult. It's staying as positive as you can throughout the whole of your rugby career, basically. And at any time that you're down the club, if you're positive about things, everything will be much easier after that. I'm just a bit conscious of time because we're literally kind of coming up to that hour mark. Has anybody else got anything else that you want to share with the group? Any tips, anything that you think we've missed off? You can put it in chat. You can come back to, so as I said, I'm going to drop you all an email so that if you think of anything later tonight, then please just, or tomorrow or in a week's time, then just drop us an email. As I said, me, Max and Liam are your club developers covering the North. We're here to support clubs as much as we can. So if you need anything, just reach out and we're happy to kind of talk you through what we can do. Max, can you put up that final poll now, please? So on a bit of a selfish note, we're asking for feedback, please. And we want it to be as honest as possible. So don't feel like you're going to hurt my feelings. So because if we don't get honest feedback, then we can't necessarily change anything. So it's just going to ask you whether it's been useful this evening. So basically, has it been worth an hour of your time? And just be as honest as you can, because then it allows us to actually make changes going forward. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been really nice kind of talking to you and hearing what clubs have got planned and what's going on with you guys. If you need to head off, Danielle, enjoy training this evening.
I'm just looking at the time and I've got the kit sat in the hall and should be there now, so I'm going to have to head off straight away. But
no worries. Thank you. And everybody else, if you've got a question, then we're going to hang on for about 5 minutes. So if you've got a question, then stay on and pick our brains. But if not, you can head off and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Hi Laura, it's Yvonne. Just to say, I was struggling connecting earlier, so you've got an email from me apologising for not being on and to ask if I could get slides and stuff, so ignore that email.
No worries.